Hi friends, welcome to Our Family Cooks. Today we have some really cool appetizer ideas that you can take to your next football watching party or just make and eat at home. It's so delicious. So we also have an exciting surprise. My husband is going to be making one of these appetizers on the grill. So let's dive in. All right, so first up, we are going to be making or baking 2 Artisan sourdough loaves of bread. I made these yesterday. If you're not familiar with sourdough, it is a 2-day process. You make the dough, let it bulk rise and ferment one day, and then the next day you take it out and you bake it. So I am making 2 different kinds. One is a cheddar cheese sourdough. I really wanted to make a cheddar jalapeno sourdough, but we got home late from a date night with some friends and I did not feel like drying the jalapenos, getting them out, and it just seemed like a lot of work. So I just shredded the cheese and put it in there, and this still turned out great. I'll have to make a cheddar jalapeno another time. And then the second loaf I made was a garlic herb loaf, and it has garlic powder, rosemary, thyme, basil, and parsley in it. So this one I'm really excited for because it already smells delicious and I know it has to taste good. So when you go to bake your Artisan sourdough, you're gonna want to have parchment paper out. So I'm getting 2 separate sheets of parchment for both of our loaves of bread. I'm not gonna bake them at the same time because they need to bake in our Dutch oven. So I will be baking them in batches, one first and then the next. And you don't need to flour your parchment paper. You just dump it, try to get it in the middle as possible on your parchment paper. I know this first one, I totally missed the mark and it's like on the side of my parchment paper, but hopefully it'll turn out just fine and it won't be an issue. And then you also want to score your sourdough. And so this is with using a razor blade. You want to make cuts into the dough. I know there's some really fancy cuts that you can make to make it look like, you know, a heart for Valentine's Day or a tree for Christmas or whatever, but I usually am just making these for my family and friends. So I just do some quick, easy cuts and it still turns out great and looks delicious. You can also spread or sprinkle a little bit of flour over the top before you put it in the oven. That just, as it rises, the flour just kind of really enhances the design that you made on the top of the bread. So you don't have to. It's more just for pretty, enhancing the design. So the baking process for this bread, we are going to preheat our oven to 450 degrees. And then once it is preheated halfway there, put your Dutch oven. So once it's around like 250 degrees, put your Dutch oven in the oven to kind of warm it up. And then also you want to add a few ice cubes to the outside, not where it's touching the bread, but on the outside of the parchment paper, and then put the lid on your Dutch oven. So the ice cubes make a really good steam, which helps the bread rise and get crispy. And ice cubes are just easier to use than pouring water in your Dutch oven. So we're going to want to bake the bread for 20 to 25 minutes with the lid on, and then we will take the lid off and bake it for an additional 15 to 20 minutes. I did 25 and 20, so just you can do 15, and then if it needs a few more minutes, add a few more minutes, and then it's all done. I am super excited for how these turned out. The garlic herb loaf is definitely a lot taller. It had a better rise on it than the cheddar one, but they still look fantastic. They have the nice golden brown, the crispy edges. They're super soft, but I'm gonna transfer them to a drying rack and just let them cool down for a good hour to 2 hours before I cut into these. You wanna let it cool. Don't cut into it right away. I don't know the science behind it. I just know that it's easier and better to cut into it if you let it cool down for a little bit. Okay, so the appetizer my husband is going to be grilling for you guys is a buffalo chicken mozzarella ball. These are so delicious. This was a first time making them. He was excited to try something new and they turned out fantastic. So let's get started. We decided or he decided to grind the chicken ourselves at home. We did buy chicken breast from the store, but buying pre-ground chicken breast or chicken was $8 a pound. So like that's insane. So we bought just the big chicken breasts, and then he is grinding these himself, which turned out to be really easy. Obviously you have to have a grinder, so if you don't have a grinder, probably need to just buy the ground chicken. He did say that you could cut it up and shred it up yourself, which would probably take a lot longer using a knife and stuff, but that is also an option if you don't want to buy the pre-ground chicken. So if you do have a grinder at home and you want to grind the meat yourself, he did put it through twice, and the second time he put it through, he added some seasoning to it before he put it through the grinder a second time. So just FYI, if you want to do that at home, that's what he did, and you can do that as well. Once all of the chicken is ground up, you are going to add panko breadcrumbs. These are just plain breading panko crumbs, no seasoning because we're adding our own. And we'll add that into the meat as well as more seasoning. And he's using the Holy Voodoo seasoning mix by Meat Church, but you could use kind of whatever you want to make them into. He wanted more of a spicy chicken meatball, so that's why he went this route. And always remember, when you're working with raw chicken, once you're done using something, put it straight into the sink, clean all them separately, put them in the dishwasher, use antibacterial wipes. You just don't want to get chicken juice all over and then not have it be cleaned up. So just FYI. And he did want me to tell you about these gloves that he uses when he does chicken. Super easy, so then it's not all over your hands. You obviously still want to wash your hands afterwards, but he really likes using these gloves when working with raw meat. To make these mozzarella chicken balls, we are using cheese sticks. You could also use, if you have a block of cheese, just cut up like a chunk of cheese to put inside. So he used about a fourth of a cheese stick in each of the ground chicken balls. And this is gonna make a nice cheesy center. Once you get all of them formed into balls with the cheese in the middle, you'll roll them in panko breadcrumbs. Well, actually, you're gonna want to sprinkle them with seasoning first. So sprinkle them in seasoning and then roll them in the panko breadcrumbs. You'll do this to all of your meatballs, and then let them set out on the counter for 10 minutes to kind of sweat and get the seasonings really soaked into the meat, and then put it in the fridge and wait until you need to grill. So really easy. And it's time to put these on the grill. We are going to put them on there for 35 minutes. Just keep them on there until they're at 160 degrees for sure. So it might take a little more than 35 minutes, might be a little less depending on your grill. And we are only grilling these, we're not smoking them. So even though we have a smoker, we're just using it as a grill today. I ended up making some homemade ranch to go with these chicken meatballs because I thought it sounded like such a good thing, like a little spicy of the buffalo meatballs, and then add some like cool, delicious ranch. So I made some homemade ranch to go with these. And my homemade ranch recipe is one that is on my blog, ourfamilycooks.com, and I will link it in the description below. It is my favorite. I've tested it multiple times, tried with more or less mayo, and this is just perfect creamy consistency. There we go. It is the perfect creamy consistency. Got it. So definitely check it out and make it at home yourself. Now that it's been a few hours, we are gonna cut into my bread, and I can show you what the inside looks like. So first up, I'm gonna cut the garlic herb one. And oh my gosh, this smells amazing. And just look at how soft and like spongy it is. When you squeeze it, it like bounces back, and it's got all the really good air holes. Oh, so good, perfect bread. And I gotta say, I have not made an artisan loaf bread in quite a while because the last few times I made it, it just came out really flat, and it just wasn't as good. So I was getting kind of defeated by it, and I went to the sandwich bread and was like, I'll come back to the artisan loaf later. So I'm really happy with this. This one especially got really tall, and it looks really good. The outside is nice and crispy, so I'm super excited about this. I do think in the beginning my starter wasn't old enough or mature enough, so that's why I just wasn't getting a very good rise on it. So if you have a pretty new starter, like only 1 to 2 or even 3 months old, it may not work as well. This one that I'm using is over a year, 2 years old. It's definitely a more mature, active, bubbly starter. So just keep going. If yours doesn't come out perfect, it will eventually. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. And I gotta say, this homemade ranch is really good on this bread. Just the creaminess of the mayo and milk and sour cream and everything in there enhances the flavor of the bread. And also, since this is an herb bread and then there's, you know, fresh dill and all these seasonings in the ranch, it really enhances all the flavors. It is so good. So I highly recommend making this bread with all these herbs and then trying some homemade ranch on top. All right, onto our cheddar artisan loaf. Let's get this one cut up and see how the inside looks. Ooh, it is cutting really nicely, and the cheese looks nice and melted. It also smells delicious, just like the other one. I love the smell of fresh baked bread. So this one is definitely a winner too. Tastes delicious. This would be perfect alongside like a tomato soup or a chili or something like one of those soups. Really, really good. I can tell that the jalapenos would have just really enhanced the flavor. So next time I will for sure make this a jalapeno cheddar bread. But even with just the cheese, it is still absolutely delicious. All right, so our chicken meatballs are almost done. We are just gonna add some buffalo sauce on top first. So let's go do that. And this is the Frank's buffalo sauce that you can buy in pretty much any grocery store. These chicken meatballs are looking so good. They're getting a really good crust on the outside. I can just tell that they're gonna be amazing. And after we put the buffalo sauce on, we're gonna put them back on the grill for a few more minutes. They were at about 150 when we added the buffalo sauce. So we want them to be at 160 before we take them off. And that's 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the internal temperature of chicken that you want before you take them and eat them. All right, so our chicken meatballs should be done now. Let's go test them. Yes, it looks like they are 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect. We can take these off the grill and we will cut into one and see what it looks like. So I know you guys can't hear it, but these have a perfect crunch on the outside when you cut into them. And then also when you bite into them, the crunch is perfect. It's like nice and crispy, but then also the meat is perfectly cooked, and these are just fantastic. So I highly recommend making these. I will put a list of ingredients and everything in the description below, but they are so good. Definitely make these for your next football party. I know there's a big game coming up soon. And that is everything for our video today. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being here and watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and come back again for more videos. Thanks, y'all.